Okay, let's dive into something I think is incredibly relevant and, frankly, pretty challenging sometimes. Navigating the whole world of dating.
Yeah.
Specifically, why our brains can sometimes lead us straight into relationships that just end up being, well, incredibly difficult.
It's a puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah,
So many people face this. You meet someone, it feels amazing, sparks fly.
right.
And then somewhere down the line, maybe weeks, maybe months, it all changes. Often, really, for the worse.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've been really immersing ourselves in the insights from this book called Dating Radar, Why Your Brain Says Yes to the One Who Will Make Your Life Hell. It's by Bill Eddy and Megan Hunter.
And our mission here really is to pull out the key takeaways from what they've put together. We want to help you sharpen your own radar,
Mm-hmm.
help you recognize those potential red flags much earlier on, maybe understand why you might be prone to missing them in the first place,
Right.
and ultimately just empower you to make, well, healthier, more informed choices when you're dating.
And the core idea they explore is just fascinating, isn't it? This whole notion that the very qualities that initially pull us in,
Mm.
that really intense charm or that feeling of just instant perfect connection, those things can actually be like major warning signs.
You really can. They can be signals for individuals the authors call high conflict people,
Mm-hmm.
or HCPs for short.
HCPs.
Yeah. These are basically individuals whose fundamental ways of relating often just create chaos and sometimes real destruction in relationships.
Okay, but there's a really important note the authors make, right? And we should echo this strongly up front.
Absolutely crucial. Yeah.
This information is really just for your education, for your awareness. It's absolutely not meant for, publicly labeling people or using it like a weapon in arguments.
No, definitely not. The whole point is caution, compassion, and respect, both for yourself and, for others you meet.
Think of it like building your own internal GPS, maybe, not a tool for judging others.
Exactly. A navigation system, not a judgment tool.
Yeah. So let's start right there. What exactly defines a high conflict person, according to Eddy and Hunter? What are those like core patterns they talk about?
Well, the book lays out some pretty distinct characteristics that tend to show up together.
Mm-hmm.
First off, they often operate with this kind of all-or-nothing thinking.
All or nothing.
Yeah, the world and the people in it are either totally good or totally bad. There's very little room for gray areas.
So someone's either like perfect or pure evil, a savior or an enemy, no in between.
Exactly that. And this black and white view often comes coupled with really unmanaged emotions. They tend to have extreme reactions that just seem way out of proportion to whatever's actually happening.
And I guess that can spill over into extreme behaviors then.
Right. And the final piece, maybe the most defining characteristic, is blaming others consistently. They almost always see problems as being caused by someone else. They very rarely take responsibility for their own actions or, their part in any conflict.
Okay, that sounds like a really difficult pattern to be around long term. But you mentioned earlier these traits might be kind of well hidden at the start.
Yes, and this is the really tricky part, the core of the dating radar idea. Initially, they can be incredibly appealing. So appealing.
Hmm.
The authors use this great analogy. It can feel like you're sailing on a lovely tropical sea of love. Everything feels calm,
Yeah.
beautiful, perfect on the surface.
Okay.
But they warn that those underlying HCP traits, they're like hidden reefs lurking just below.
So you're just enjoying the cruise, lovely view, totally unaware of the danger, right under the water.
Precisely. And the typical kind of disheartening pattern the book describes is that this lovely sea, well, it doesn't last, usually within about a year, sometimes sooner, sometimes a bit longer.
Uh-huh.
Those hidden reefs start causing problems, big problems. The conflict, the blame, the chaos, the drama, it just escalates, often dramatically.
Wow.
And the person who initially felt like you're, I think they call it target of seduction, suddenly becomes their target of blame.
Oof. That's a scary switch. From being idealized to being the scapegoat.
It really is.
The book also touches on where these traits might come from, right? Why someone might develop these patterns.
It does. They discuss several possibilities. Could be being born with certain predispositions. Difficult early childhoods are a big factor, and specifically childhood trauma.
Trauma like abuse.
Yeah, physical, emotional, verbal, sexual abuse, or even just being constantly exposed to really intense conflict between parents.
So those challenging early environments can really shape things.
Hugely. And interestingly, the book also points out that sometimes even like excessive praise in childhood without any realistic feedback might contribute to a kind of self-absorption that makes healthy adult relationships really tough.
Huh.
And here's a critical point Eddie and Hunter make. While these individuals often desperately need professional help, like counseling,
Yeah.
they rarely, if ever, recognize that need in themselves. They don't see the problem as being them.
Right, because of the blaming pattern. Okay, so we've got that HCPs exist, they have these patterns, but they can be surprisingly hard to spot early on. Which brings us right back to the main question. How do they actually manage to, like, jam your radar?
Yeah, how do they do it?
How do they make us miss those reefs?
Well, the book suggests they're often very skilled,
Mm-hmm.
maybe consciously, maybe not, at appearing appealing and kind of manipulating how you see things. They have these ways of getting you to just dismiss your gut feeling or rationalize away those little warning signs. Based on surveys the authors did, they identified 4 main ways HCPs jam that dating radar.
4 main jamming techniques. Okay, lay them out for us.
All right, the first one is charm. Just overwhelming charm.
Charm.
They can be extraordinarily charming, sometimes to a degree that feels almost intoxicating, like an elixir or a drug, the book says.
Feels too good to be true.
And often it is. Because this charm isn't necessarily like deep-seated authenticity. It's often more like a performance they can switch on and off when needed.
That makes sense. Intense charm can definitely sweep you off your feet and make you overlook other stuff. What's number 2?
Number 2 is fake compatibility.
Fake compatibility.
Yeah. They make it seem incredibly easy, totally effortless, to be on the same page with you about things that are really important to you. Things maybe previous partners weren't so flexible about.
Okay.
The book gives this really powerful example. Someone who quickly agreed to change some habits that were deal breakers for their partner created this amazing illusion of a perfect fit.
Yeah.
But later became totally clear they were just saying it. They were lying, basically, and never actually intended to change.
So they kind of mirror your values, your desires to create that instant feeling of, wow, finally someone who gets me.
Exactly that. They reflect back exactly what you want to see.
Yep.
Okay, third method, overt sexuality.
Sexuality.
These relationships can be incredibly exciting, really passionate, right from the very beginning. And, maybe fewer social restraints in modern dating play into this too. The book includes a story about a woman who made a point of saying she wasn't someone who slept around, but then was very, very overtly sexual on the very first date.
And the authors point out that, great sex can create this really powerful bond that makes it incredibly hard to leave later on, even when other big problems start showing up.
Yes, absolutely. And they also note that once the relationship feels kind of secure to the HCP, sex can sometimes just vanish, or even worse, get used as a weapon for manipulation.
Wow.
They share an example, I think it was someone named Alexa, who apparently used sex very strategically to kind of get her way in situations.
Okay, so charm, fake compatibility, overt sexuality. What's the 4th way they jam the radar?
The 4th one is fake protectiveness.
Fake protectiveness. How does that work?
They really want you to see them as strong, capable, protective.
Yeah.
Big and strong. Or maybe exciting and sexy in a way that feels protective.
Okay.
Examples from the book include things like mistaking behaviors that are actually early signs of stalking for just really intense romantic interest. Or seeing this sort of Prince Charming quality in someone that, down the road, turns out to have masked a hidden history of violence.
So what you're perceiving as, like, caring strength is really more about their desire for control, maybe creating dependence?
Precisely. The book really emphasizes this isn't about building a genuine adult partnership, based on mutual respect and interdependence. It's much more about fulfilling their own needs, maybe for control, maybe for dependency from you. One person surveyed put it perfectly. They felt the fantasy of being protected was really strongly sold to them.
Yeah.
But they never actually felt protected in the relationship itself. Big disconnect.
That gap between the story they sell and the actual lived reality, that seems key. And speaking of reality, the book flags something absolutely critical about the speed, right? The speed at which the relationship develops.
Oh, this is huge. Maybe one of the single biggest red flags they highlight. The speed of the relationship, how quickly it barrels towards commitment, is a major, major indicator to watch.
So what do they recommend?
Their strong recommendation is to wait at least a full year, 1 whole year, before making any major commitments like getting married or deciding to have children.
A whole year. That sounds like a long time in the heat of a new romance. Why is that time frame so important?
Because it gives you time. Time to see the person in lots of different situations, under different kinds of stress, through holidays, meeting family, even just the change of seasons.
Right. You see more than just the honeymoon version.
Exactly. It allows that initial performance, that carefully maintained facade, to potentially crack under pressure or just over time. They share this story of someone surveyed who got engaged after only 3 months.
Wow, fast.
Yeah, and married within 6. Then 10 years later, the partner seemed to just change overnight. And looking back, the person realized all those radar jamming signs, the instant flexibility, the promises of care, the intense sexuality, they were all there from the start.
But just obscured by the rush.
Totally obscured by the rush. The speed meant they just didn't see the reality. And another respondent offered even more caution, advising waiting 2 years, because in their painful experience, they felt HCPs can't fake it more than 2 years.
2 years, okay.
The basic point here is just that time is probably your most valuable ally in seeing who someone really is beyond that initial, often misleading attraction.
Okay, so we've looked at how HCPs operate, the tactics they use to jam your radar, but the book makes a really important point. It's not just about their methods, right? It's also about our own internal blind spots, our vulnerabilities.
Yes, this is where the focus turns inward. And it's so important to frame this as self-awareness, not self-blame. Okay?
Absolutely.
The book lists several key vulnerabilities that can make you more likely to overlook warning signs, or maybe even more appealing as a target for certain types.
Like what kind of vulnerabilities?
Things like loneliness, feeling really isolated, grieving a past relationship, still feeling that loss, shyness, maybe, low self-esteem, definitely, and particularly past trauma, especially childhood abuse.
And how do those things make someone more vulnerable to these specific dynamics?
Well, the author suggests that some HCP types, like, say, sociopaths, seem to have this almost uncanny intuitive sense for picking up on vulnerable backgrounds. Loneliness, for instance, they describe it like hunger. It's this uncomfortable feeling that makes you desperate to connect, right? Which can really lower your guard.
Makes sense.
Someone with past trauma, or maybe who grew up with parents who were emotionally unavailable, they might feel such a desperate need to finally connect that they just overlook huge problems.
Yeah.
And tragically, childhood abuse can leave these deep scars, maybe creating ingrained insecurities or even just a dysfunctional sort of template for what relationships are supposed to feel like that HCPs can then exploit. It makes someone, as the book puts it, a perfect target.
That really lands. If you're just craving connection so deeply, it's easy to see how you might rationalize away things that would scream red flag to someone else.
Exactly.
The book also talks about certain naive beliefs that act as blind spots too, doesn't it?
Yes, and these are super common, really powerful blind spots. The first big one is the belief that you can change someone.
Ah, the fixer-upper fantasy.
Totally. People often get into these relationships thinking, my love will heal them, or my support will make them better, or even just time will sort this out. They see glimpses of potential.
If I just love them enough, they'll become that person I see sometimes.
Precisely that thought process. But the book is crystal clear. You cannot change another person. Full stop.
Right.
Only they can change themselves. And usually that requires significant professional help, and critically, only if they genuinely want to change. Believing you can change them just keeps you stuck.
And what's the other major naive belief?
It's the belief that someone else will complete you, or, magically fix your low self-esteem.
You complete me idea from the movies.
Exactly. And HCPs are often masters at spotting and exploiting that deep desire. The book warns that if you're looking for someone else to make you feel whole, well, you set yourself up perfectly to attract someone who promises to fix you or protect you, but is actually fundamentally out of balance themselves.
So the real work is building that sense of wholeness in yourself first.
Yeah, that's the core insight. You need to work on feeling like a whole person on your own. The goal isn't finding someone to complete you. It's building your own self-worth so you can seek an interdependent partner.
Interdependent, not dependent.
Exactly. Someone you share life with as equals, not someone you're relying on for your fundamental sense of value or safety.
And the book really hammers home the importance of listening to your gut instincts, doesn't it, as part of building that radar?
Oh, absolutely non-negotiable. They share a story from a survey respondent about how their gut was just screaming that something was wrong.
Yeah.
But they dismissed it. They rationalized it away, overrode their own internal wisdom. It's heartbreaking.
So the advice is,
pay attention to how you feel in the relationship. If you're constantly anxious, if you're stressed, if you're having physical symptoms like stomach aches or headaches, or if you always feel like you have to defend totally reasonable behaviors or feelings, these are strong signals. Eddy and Hunter basically say these feelings mean it's time to seriously consider get out.
Don't ignore those internal alarms.
Yeah.
Okay, so what strategies does the book suggest for actively addressing these blind spots and vulnerabilities we all might have?
Well, seeking counseling is a big one, especially if you have a history of trauma, or you really struggle with loneliness, or you're still grieving a past loss. Therapy can make a huge difference.
Makes sense. What else?
You can also actively train yourself to challenge your interpretations. Like, don't automatically assume obsessive jealousy or constant texting is love. Ask yourself, could this actually be about control?
Reframe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And build a strong support system. Talk to trusted friends, family. Their perspective isn't clouded by that initial romantic haze, you know?
They can often see the reefs you're completely missing because you're busy admiring the sunset.
Exactly. Listen to them if they raise concerns. And finally, practicing self-affirmations can help. Consciously reminding yourself things like, I deserve respect, or criticism often says more about the person giving it than it does about me.
Building that inner resilience.
Yes, so you're less susceptible to manipulation or self-doubt.
Okay, let's shift gears just a little bit and take a quick look at some specific types of high conflict individuals that Eddy and Hunter describe. Knowing these specific patterns might add another useful layer to your radar.
Yeah, they outline 4 main types, and interestingly, they often link each type to a kind of core underlying fear. Understanding these archetypes helps see how those broader HCP patterns we talked about actually play out.
Okay, so what's the first type?
First, they discuss the narcissist. Their core fear, according to the book, is being inferior. Yeah, which drives this deep, powerful need to feel superior to everyone else. So you see the constant blaming, the demanding nature, demeaning other people, needing control, always needing to be the center of attention, the star.
And the book suggests this is a pretty common type to encounter.
It does. They mentioned research suggesting that while maybe around 6% of the population might meet the full clinical criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, many, many more people have significant narcissistic traits that cause problems in relationships.
Okay, next up, the borderline type.
Right. The borderline HCP's core fear is being abandoned.
Abandonment.
Which fuels this intense, desperate need for attachment. This can show up as really clingy behavior, but also extreme mood swings, intense rage, especially when they feel rejected or disconnected. And that classic Jekyll Hyde thing, idealizing you one minute, putting you on a pedestal, and then intensely devaluing you the next. It's incredibly destabilizing.
And the book points out they can be particularly difficult in situations like divorce, triggering that abandonment fear.
Absolutely. Divorce often hits that core fear hard, leading to really intense battles, often using children as pawns or just abruptly cutting off all contact. They also link the relationship cycles sometimes seen here, the buildup of tension, the explosion, maybe followed by intense remorse or apologies, to patterns often seen in domestic violence dynamic.
Where the underlying issue doesn't get fixed, so the cycle just keeps repeating.
Exactly. Okay, third type, the sociopath.
Sociopath, also sometimes called antisocial.
Yes, antisocial personality. Their core fear is being dominated, which leads to this powerful drive to dominate others instead.
Okay.
These individuals are often described as being the most skilled at deception, lying, conning, manipulating, disregarding rules, breaking laws. Often with a real lack of genuine empathy or remorse, they frequently lead secret lives.
That sounds genuinely dangerous.
They certainly can be. They're often absolute masters of those radar jamming tactics we talked about earlier, the charm, the fake compatibility, fake protectiveness. And as we mentioned, they can seem to have that uncanny sixth sense for zeroing in on people with vulnerable backgrounds, making them really effective predators in some cases. The book points to things like online catfishing as a prime example of this kind of deception in action.
Wow. Okay, and the final type they outline?
The histrionic type. Their core fear is being ignored.
Ignored.
Yeah, so they have this fundamental need to be the absolute center of attention, all eyes on them. So you look for extremely dramatic behavior, really over-the-top emotional reactions, blaming others for their own feelings, and often using their sexuality or highly exaggerated dramatic stories to draw the spotlight and keep it there.
And the book mentions them using tears almost strategically when confronted.
Yes, specifically using tears or these intense emotional displays as a tactic when they're questioned or maybe caught in a lie. It deflects and gains sympathy. While they're generally seen as less likely to be physically violent compared to maybe the antisocial type, they can still cause immense damage by, say, exposing secrets publicly or spreading really vicious, distorted stories to ruin reputations. They use the example of some public claims made by Heather Mills during her high-profile divorce as potentially fitting this kind of make-believe pattern used for attention.
Okay. It seems pretty clear, and the book notes this too, that people don't always fit neatly into just one box. They can have overlapping traits from these different types.
That is absolutely key. These labels are helpful frameworks, ways to understand patterns, but the really critical thing is recognizing the overall pattern of high conflict behavior. The blame, the intensity, the instability, the lack of responsibility. That's more important than nailing down the exact label.
Right. And beyond these specific HCP types, the book also reminds us that, other issues can make relationships incredibly difficult too, or they can combine with HCP traits to make things even more chaotic. It's not only about these four patterns.
That's a really important point. Eddy and Hunter briefly cover a few other significant issues that commonly lead to high conflict relationships or exacerbate HCP tendencies.
What are some of those?
Well, addictions are a major one. An active addiction makes a healthy, balanced relationship almost impossible, really, because the substance or the behavior becomes the main focus.
Right.
The person becomes incredibly self-absorbed, just centered on getting their fix. And the behavior that often results intense anger, yelling, lying, sometimes even violence can look very similar to HCP patterns.
And the book is really clear that you can't just love someone out of their addiction, right?
Yeah.
You can't fix it for them by staying.
Absolutely not. Trying to do that, enabling them, actually just keeps the addiction going longer. Recovery is definitely possible, but it requires the individual's genuine, sustained commitment to change. You can't force it.
Okay. What else does the book touch on?
Bipolar disorder. This involves these significant mood swings, cycling between manic phases, which can actually feel incredibly exciting and high energy initially, maybe even impulsive.
Jamming the radar again with that initial thrill.
Potentially, yes. That manic energy can be very attractive at first, and then cycling into depressive phases.
And the source mentioned there might be a higher incidence of bipolar among people with borderline or narcissistic traits.
Yes, there can be overlap and co-occurrence. And while medication can be very effective for bipolar disorder, not sticking with the medication regimen is unfortunately pretty common, which can lead to a lot of instability in relationships.
How about autism spectrum disorders, or ASD?
The book touches on this briefly, noting how ASD can impact social interactions and close relationships, primarily due to challenges with things like reading social cues, maybe expressing empathy in expected ways, or dealing with sudden changes.
Okay.
Now, certain behaviors, like maybe displays of anger if overwhelmed, or difficulty understanding social nuance, could potentially be misread or mistaken for HCP traits by someone unfamiliar with ASD. But the underlying cause is completely different. It's about understanding that difference.
Right, not jumping to conclusions. And finally, they mentioned paranoia.
Yeah. Individuals experiencing paranoia are deeply suspicious of others, almost inherently. And this suspicion naturally extends to their partners, leading to accusations, jealousy, and isolation. And the book advises very strongly against thinking you can somehow soften their fears with logic or constant reassurance. It usually doesn't work. It's much more likely that their paranoia will just end up increasing your own fear and anxiety over time.
So again, the main message isn't about trying to diagnose anyone with a specific condition from afar,
Definitely not.
but it's about recognizing the patterns of behavior, whatever their source, that consistently create conflict, instability, and distress in a relationship.
Precisely. Is there a consistent pattern of blaming others? Are emotions overwhelming and unmanaged? Is there extreme behavior, deception? That's what you're training your radar to pick up on.
We've covered a lot on how to spot these patterns, understand our own vulnerabilities. Now let's turn to a really tough but vital topic. Actually navigating the end of a relationship with someone who shows these high conflict patterns. The book makes it very clear this is rarely a simple, amicable split.
No, it's almost always described as a complex, often difficult process. And while leaving can feel agonizing at the time, the authors also really emphasize that it's often followed by this profound sense of relief, like reclaiming your life.
But they warn that the breakup phase itself can be particularly risky.
Yes, it's absolutely crucial to be aware of this. This can be the period when individuals with high conflict patterns are potentially at their most dangerous,
Why is that?
because the breakup directly triggers those deepest core fears we talked about earlier for each type. Their reactions get intensely amplified.
Can you walk us through how those fears might connect to their reactions during a breakup?
Sure. So the narcissist, terrified of feeling inferior, might react to being left with intense rage, vicious blame, or public humiliation tactics, anything to make them feel superior again.
Okay.
The borderline individual, facing that ultimate fear of abandonment, might react by becoming intensely clingy, making desperate pleas, threatening self-harm or even suicide, raging uncontrollably, or maybe even stalking anything to try and force that connection back.
Wow.
The antisocial or sociopathic type, feeling dominated by your decision to leave, might react with threats, actual violence, intense campaigns of lies and manipulation, or just complete dismissal, all aimed at regaining a sense of power and control.
Right.
And this histrionic person, terrified of being ignored now that the relationship stage is ending, might react by creating massive public drama, exposing intimate secrets, or spreading really vicious, distorted stories to keep the spotlight firmly on themselves, even if it's negative attention.
That connection between the core fear and the potential reaction makes so much sense, even if it's scary. The source specifically mentions risks like domestic violence, property destruction, stalking.
Yes, absolutely. The risk of domestic violence, tragically, is very real. And the book even uses the O.J. Simpson case as a stark public example of how conflict and violence can escalate dramatically right around the point of separation. Destruction of property, relentless stalking, online harassment, these are also common tactics used to punish or control.
And what happens typically when children are involved in the breakup?
Oh, that often becomes the main battleground. HCPs may fight relentlessly over custody, not necessarily out of concern for the kids, but as a way to maintain conflict. They might try to alienate the children from the other parent, poisoning the relationship.
Parental alienation.
Exactly, or just drag out court proceedings for years and years as a way to maintain control and inflict pain.
And financial sabotage is another risk area.
Definitely. They might try to block access to joint bank accounts, suddenly drain funds, hide assets, or just use finances generally as a way to punish you or maintain leverage during the separation process. The book even suggests being wary of early requests for, like, complete financial transparency or access during the relationship as a potential red flag.
Given all these potential challenges and risks, the book must really stress the importance of careful preparation before ending the relationship.
It's absolutely vital. They strongly, strongly advise having a solid plan in place before you actually communicate your decision to leave.
A plan like what?
Seeking support is key. Talking to a therapist who specifically has experience with high conflict personalities, confiding in trusted friends or family who understand the dynamics, maybe even having them read the book too so they get it. This provides crucial guidance and emotional support.
Practical steps, too.
Yes, taking practical protective measures. Things like changing passwords on all your accounts, email, social media, banking, securing important documents. Maybe quietly separating finances, if possible beforehand. Thinking about your physical safety.
And how you actually deliver the news.
Trying to maintain a cool head, if possible and safe, is important. The book suggests that clear, calm, firm communication without getting sucked into arguments or justifications is often the most effective approach. But again, always prioritizing your safety above all else.
You have to be prepared for potentially intense reactions, even if you hope it goes smoothly.
Exactly. Hope for the best, but prepare for the potential worst, based on the patterns you've already observed.
Wow. This has been a really deep dive into some challenging, but I think incredibly valuable territory for anyone navigating dating or relationships today. Let's try and bring it all together now in our final section, focusing on building your own dating radar and staying safe going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. The book really leaves you with empowering steps, kind of summarizing the key lessons we've been talking through. First and foremost, actively learn the patterns of high conflict behavior we've discussed.
Know what to look for.
Exactly. The blame, the black and white thinking, the unmanaged intense emotions, the extreme behaviors. Get familiar with those signs.
So you can recognize them when they appear, even if they're subtle at first?
Precisely. Second, specifically become aware of how they jam your radar. Remember those 4 tactics?
Charm, fake compatibility, overt sexuality, fake protectiveness.
Right. Be consciously aware that those things, especially when they feel overwhelming or too good to be true, can be carefully constructed facades masking much deeper issues.
Being mindful that those initial really intense positives can sometimes actually be the biggest warnings.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, third, and this is maybe the most profound piece, commit to addressing your own blind spots and vulnerabilities.
The inward look.
Yeah. This means actively working on things like loneliness, maybe seeking support if you have past trauma, genuinely building your self-esteem from the inside out, and really challenging those deep-seated, but often harmful, naive beliefs.
Like believing you can change someone or that you need someone else to complete you.
Exactly. Getting real about those beliefs, which leads directly to the fourth point. Learn to trust
Yeah.
and listen to your gut instincts. That feeling of unease, that constant stress, feeling like you're always walking on eggshells or defending yourself, that's crucial information. Don't ignore it. It's your internal radar working. Let it guide you. And fifth, the really practical one we've hit on. Give the relationship time.
Don't rush.
Don't rush. That recommendation of at least 1 year before major commitments like marriage or kids, it's about giving yourself the necessary time frame to see the real person emerge over time, across different situations, good and bad.
And related to that, don't keep your new relationship in a secret bubble. Get those outside perspectives.
Oh, absolutely critical. Seek second opinions, third opinions from trusted friends and family, people who know you well and care about you. Their perspective isn't clouded by that intense in-love feeling.
Right.
They might spot things you're completely missing. And if they voice concerns, take them seriously. Don't just brush them off.
Are there other specific red flags maybe to keep an eye out for within the relationship itself as it progresses?
Yes, the book mentions a few more, like really constant contact, texting, calling all the time. It can feel like intense affection at first,
Yeah, flattering even.
but it can quickly morph into monitoring and control. Also, any sign of domestic violence, physical, verbal, emotional, financial development, no matter how seemingly small or isolated it seems at first, that's a giant non-negotiable red flag. Act on it immediately.
Absolutely.
And pay attention to the overall dynamic. Is it moving towards mutual dependence, where one person seems to need control or the other seems overly reliant? Or is it building towards healthy interdependence as equals?
Where they want control over you, not a partnership with you.
Exactly. And underpinning all of this, really, is the fundamental work of building your own self-worth. Remembering that you are seeking a partner to share your already whole life with, not someone to fix you, fill a void, or complete you.
Feeling whole within yourself first really is foundational to attracting and sustaining a healthy, balanced relationship.
Couldn't agree more.
So the ultimate takeaway seems to be look for balance. Look for consistency in a partner and in the relationship itself. And be really wary of those overwhelming extremes, those recurring patterns of chaos, blame, and control, especially if they show no signs of genuine, self-motivated, sustained change.
That imbalance, that inconsistency, that recurring loop of conflict where responsibility is always deflected elsewhere, that's really the heart of the high conflict dynamic you're learning to recognize and hopefully avoid.
Well, this deep dive into Dating Radar has certainly given us, and hopefully you, a really powerful framework for understanding some of the most challenging dynamics out there in dating and relationships. Recognizing these patterns, both in others and importantly in ourselves, feels truly empowering for making healthier choices as we move forward.
It really is about replacing maybe blind hope with informed awareness, isn't it? Allowing you to approach dating with clearer eyes, with greater self-respect, and ultimately a much better chance of building truly healthy, fulfilling connections.
So here's a final thought for you to maybe reflect on after this deep dive. If you could instantly see with perfect clarity both the potential reefs hidden beneath the surface in the people you meet and your own personal blind spots that might make you vulnerable to them, what surprising truths might you uncover about the relationships you've been drawn to in the past? And knowing that, how might you fundamentally change your approach to finding genuine, healthy connection in the future?